I'm Rob Licuria, Senior Editor at Gold Derby, here with the one and only Attica Locke, who co-created, co-wrote, co-everything this amazing new series on Netflix called From Scratch. Attica, thanks for joining us today. I was saying to you offline how much this show means to me personally, and we'll go into that in a bit more detail later, but I assume you hear that from a lot of people, and I just wonder, this is different for you and your sister Tembi, who you created this show with, and this is based on her memoir. You're reliving something very personal that she went through and you went through as well. What is that like to really immerse yourself into something that is part of your personal story? That is not something that you do every day.
No, and this experience was quite surreal, um, but so deeply moving. The fact that it's so personal is ironically what made the project easier to do and also harder to do, because it was so personal, because I loved so much the people that the story is about. That's what fueled me to get up every morning, to stay up when we had late shoots, to do all of the hard work and sweat of show running this really big show. But it's also the very thing that made it really hard some days, which meant crying in my trailer, which meant, wow, I feel really alone in this. I don't know what to do. Tembi and I together would often try to take care of one another. So there were days when I told her, don't come to set today, it's too much, I'll take care of it. And she did that for me on other days. And so there were moments where I think we both sat alone with it, but we were never without the wonder that this was even happening, without the gratitude that the story was being told. And so as difficult as it was, and it was difficult and it was painful and it was very vulnerable, it's also the thing that gave me the most strength, is the fact that I loved so much this story, and it is so personal, and I so adore the people that the story is about.
Absolutely. For people who haven't seen it yet, it's adapted by yourself and your sister based on your sister Tembi Locke's memoir. It's heartwarming and heartbreaking, true story about this character, Amahle, Amy Wheeler, an American student studying in Italy, played by Zoe Saldana, who meets and falls in love with a Sicilian chef, Eugenio Mastandrea. And when they fall in love, we follow their journey. And of course, then when he faces health issues, we also follow their heartbreak. I was not expecting where the show was going to take me. And I kept thinking to myself, knowing your background, you've been involved in some really great television and some great productions, and you're a writer. But to take on a project like this as the co-creator, the showrunner, you're the leader, you're at the helm. It's a huge undertaking. So why did you decide that this was the material that was ripe for you to really tackle and bring to life on screen?
I don't know that I would even thought of it that way. I simply knew that my sister had written a really good book. And when I had an opportunity to mention it to Hello Sunshine, I took the opportunity to say, you really need to read this book. It's really good. Maybe you could do something with it. And then when I introduced my sister to the executives at Hello Sunshine, I thought, oh, I'm just making an introduction. There was no part of me that thought, I'm going to run this show. I remember saying in the room, where they were like, well, but you're going to get involved, right? And I thought, well, okay, to the degree that I'm helpful, yeah, I'll get involved. So I don't know that it was that I even thought it through more than just, hey, I love this book, I love this story, and hey, if you need me, I'll jump in, I'll help out. I will say this, that during the process of trying to early on think of how to adapt it, knowing we were working with Hello Sunshine, I had also been working on a project that was an adaptation of one of my books that's a crime novel. And it just, for whatever reason, it just didn't go through. It just didn't work out. Me and the studio could never get, to a place where we liked it in the same way for the same reasons. And I had the thought to myself then, this is back in like 2018, I thought, you know what though? I wonder if the world needs From Scratch more than it needs this story about a Texas Ranger with a gun. And I love my Texas Ranger, and I understand why he carries a gun, and I love that story. But I always felt this sense about From Scratch, that there was something deeply meaningful about it. And maybe I had a kind of prescience that, of course, I couldn't have known that the pandemic was coming, or that, we were all going to need this kind of salve. But I had some felt sense that this was really meaningful and that it mattered. And I was just really grateful. So my unconscious led me here, but consciously I was just like, I'm going to introduce you to my sister. You should read her book.
Wow. And look where it's led you. You're so right. I mean, I want to see that Texas Ranger now. I'm like waiting for you to bring that to life. But we really needed this one. I obviously, in this line of work, I get to watch a lot of stuff, and a lot of it is really difficult to get through and depressing. And this one, although it is very sad, it is also so life affirming. And I just felt like it just came at just the right time. I think Netflix have done a great job in dropping it just the right time. And that's why everybody's just run to it. And and I've heard so much positive feedback about it. And I'm sure you have too, which has got to be very rewarding. I think that 90 or something, 91% at Rotten Tomatoes, like that doesn't happen every day. So you guys should be super proud. I guess that's the question. How are you feeling about the reaction to the show?
I'm very proud and I'm very happy. I feel it's as a storyteller, it's wonderful to elicit responses that you really touched people, that you upset them, you delighted them, made them curious. It's such a good feeling. I think I'm a little bit overwhelmed by the bigness of it. I'm overwhelmed by getting reactions from people that I'm a fan of, and then they're saying they're a fan of this. It feels kind of overwhelming, but overall, I feel like, wow, we really did something. And the beauty of it is that I had this feeling, frankly, toward the end of our post-production, I had this feeling of like, wow, Tembi, I think we really did this. And so that's the really fulfilling thing. And the reaction is just, oh my God, how is all this happening?
Yeah, absolutely. When you first watch the show and if you don't know much about it, I didn't know anything about the memoir that it's based on. I just figured, okay, it's going to be a really interesting story about this woman in Italy. That's always a plus for me. I love watching things that's set in Italy. You've really done a great job with setting up this place in time. A lot of shows get it wrong. You get Florence in particular, and of course Sicily towards the end, in the way that it's captured on screen so beautifully with the sets, the costumes, the color palette, the music. Your music supervision team were absolutely killing it on this show. So I just wonder, what's the pressure like to make sure that you can be as authentic as possible when you are depicting or portraying another country?
Very. And Tembi and I have to credit her with the authenticity of the Florence experience and the experience of Sicily, though we both went in knowing that we wanted to tell a story about Sicily that was about rural people, that was not about the mafia, that was just regular people living their lives. And Tembi had the benefit of saying, look, this is my experience of Florence. It's through my lens, but she's an Italian citizen now, and she speaks fluent Italian. And, she was obviously married to an Italian and Sicilian for so long, and, spend so much time there that she took the lead in making sure things were accurate. But I will say we were helped along by the most brilliant production designer I can think of, which is Laura Fox. The ways in which Laura created these Italian worlds, the ways in which she really listened to what Tembi was saying, the ways in which she worked with Tembi to create the Sicilian home. My sister called her sister-in-law in a tiny town in Sicily and said, hey, we kind of need your help. There are some things we just can't get in America. And her sister-in-law sent a big box of things that she got from around the town. And Laura Fox, our production designer, incorporated that into the set design. So we were helped along by having some really brilliant minds, but it was something that we tried to lead everybody with, that we really want to get this right. So please listen to us and kind of help us create this world, or rather recreate it. We very much led with this idea of needing to be as authentic and honoring as possible, honoring of Florence and honoring of Sicily.
And that's what really then got me. I mean, everybody has certain touch points when they're watching a show about how it's going to resonate with them personally. Everybody does. And at first, of course, it's the couple. and their love story and their struggles with you know, whether or not they're going to have kids. That's something that personally that I and others can relate to. But then the Sicily stuff, you know, as a guy with Sicilian heritage, my elderly parents loved this show. They binged it in one weekend. They even remarked,
That's the greatest compliment. That's the
yeah,
greatest
like we
compliment.
don't get to see our own culture displayed on TV as often as you think, as you said, unless you're watching The Godfather or something. And it was so spot on, so authentic. I couldn't actually believe it. The language, the way that you were able to capture that. Yeah, really impressive stuff and really lived in. And I was amazed. And so I just wonder as well, like you've mentioned that you spent a lot of time trying to get that right, but I think the casting would have been such a challenge. In particular, Paride Benesse, who plays the father. Like, I've never seen him before, and now I'm desperate to watch everything he's done. So was the casting, apart from Zoe, which I really want to talk about in a second, was the casting particularly difficult, or did you find certain actors were just really easy to get right?
It was difficult because it was all over Zoom. So the hardest part was
Yeah.
that we cast everything during a pandemic. So that was the hardest part. We had a wealth of riches to pull from. The level of talent that we got to see presented to us was unbelievable, unbelievable. So we got really, really lucky. We had a wonderful Italian casting director, but the hardest part was doing it all by Zoom and trying to hope that this little box would translate into another little box when everybody got on set. But Paride, you're right, leapt out of my computer. Like it just was so obvious that he was this character, his ability to completely just completely embody Giacomo. And the same with Lucia Sardo,
Yeah.
with Eugenio, with Roberta Regano. I mean, we just got very, very lucky and had a really, really great Italian casting director.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, but again, that Sicilian stuff was amazing. And then of course, um, the relationship between father and son was a little hard to watch because it does it ring true with a lot of people, particularly within the Sicilian culture, which is all about honor and custom and pride, and fathers doing the gardening because that's their way of showing love and respect. That was very effective for me. What did you think about the two of them, Eugenio and Paride, together on the screen? Because I wasn't sure whether it was even going to work, given that we didn't see much of them together, given what was happening until quite late in the piece, and then it just flew off the screen.
Well, Eugenio and Paride in real life became like family. In fact, the entire Italian cast, they were all staying together like in the same like apartment complex. They had meals together on the weekends. They spent time together. They became like a real family. And Paride became a figure that Eugenio looked up to and looked to for help with the accent. So everything that you're seeing is because those two actually developed a kind of love for one another. And that's something that you can't plan for. It's just, we were also lucky in that so many of the people that got involved with this project have really warm hearts. Eugenio is just a sweetheart. Paride has the biggest heart. So the idea that together they found a deep friendship and almost like a father-son relationship is because of the people that they are. So we benefited from not only casting good actors, but warm people who are curious, who are open, who are loving, because all of that translated on screen as well.
Yeah, it really does. God, I mean, just the casting process is such a science, or even not. It's just this kismet, and you can really get a show so wrong if you just don't get that mix right. And thankfully, you certainly did. And I think having Zoe at the helm, you know, number one on the call sheet, huge plus for the show. Obviously, she also took on a producer credit, so I assume then she had some involvement. I would love you to talk me through what did she bring to the table and how special was she to make this show as special as it became?
Well, Zoe was brought to us through Reese Witherspoon.
Yeah.
because Reese had had a dinner with Zoe and her husband, who's Italian.
Yeah.
And she was sitting across the table from them, speaking Italian and feeding each other and giggling and having this beautiful love affair playing out in front of Reese Witherspoon, who said, "Oh my God, I think that could be Amy." And when we heard about Zoe and we heard that her husband is Italian, that her husband is a visual artist, that she produces with her sisters. And the other thing too, that she has now spoken about openly, is that Zoe and her sisters lost their dad around the same age that the character Idalia was. So
Wow.
that Zoe had an appreciation for grief in two directions. She had appreciation for the grief from a child's perspective, and that it was very important to her as a producer that that piece gets shown, that you really got space to feel like what it was like for a child to experience grief. But I also think that she saw a glimpse of her mother, that in Amy, she saw her own mother who lost a spouse. I think she has spoken about this being healing for her. So there was a depth of understanding about the material that you could not have found necessarily maybe in anybody else. There were so many different elements that made her the perfect fit. And she became somebody that Eugenio deeply looked up to. She became kind of, a leader, for everyone on set. And it was wonderful.
It's the best work she's ever done. And
Oh
that's
my
saying
God. I mean,
something.
I was there and I don't know how she did it. I was present and I would be watching floored, not only floored by the depth of her dramatic work. I didn't know Zoe was as funny as she is. And there
Yeah.
were many times where she was so funny and just, we were cracking up laughing and really enjoying finding all of these incredible new colors to who she is as an actor.
Yeah, there's something about her generally that you really gravitate towards in this, that empathy just shone through. And of course she's devastating as well. Her Italian is spot on. Now I know why. And yeah, I just like, I think every award under the sun is coming her way for this, because it's just incredible, her performance. And then, of course, she comes from this beautiful, interesting African-American family somewhere in Texas. I love that side of it as well, because it kind of, I was thinking, you are depicting, or you're putting on screen, essentially you, played by Danielle Deadwyler, and your family. And Danielle Deadwyler, by the way, everybody, just in case you weren't aware, she's about to become, or already is, one of the biggest stars in the world. She was so good in Station 11, and now she's in Till. And this, I mean, I'm amazed by her. And you are watching her play you. So I'd love to know how that works in your mind.
Well, we very early on, Tembi and I made a decision to change everyone's names from the memoir. And for Tembi, there was a sense of, hey, I need a little bit of psychic distance here. I don't think I can hear people referring to Tembi in the writer's room or on set. That's too weird.
Yeah.
And we also we knew as storytellers, we could not hew to exactly what happened. We had to tell a really good story, which means turning up the conflict, which means, blowing characters out. And so in some ways I see in Zora, somebody asked me on Twitter just the other day, how are you guys alike? And I think we have a similar sense of humor. And we definitely like stand up for our family. We definitely will always, try to be there for people. But in other words, I feel like Danielle's Zora is her own kind of creation. And we said that to all the actors. We said it to Zoe. We said it to Keith David. We said, hey guys, here are these elements of members of our family that are already in the script, but everything else you get to kind of make your own. So there were times that it was kind of like trippy, because there are some lines of dialogue, there are words that I actually said in real life. So it's kind of like, that's weird. But I also can watch it from a distance and think, well, that's Danielle Deadwyler's creation. That is, she made that character so specifically her own. And she's, I don't know, she seems more interesting than me in some ways.
I don't know about that. No, but she's that her Zora character is also one of my favorites. And I'm so glad that you were able to give the actors that freedom. I imagine it would be so shackling and too much pressure to try to live up to something that's in your brain and from your past. But at least it was enough to give them some grounding for them to grow out of. And yeah, I mean, that all really, really works. So this is my final deep question. And I guess, and if you, I mean, when all is said and done, what do you take away from this experience? What did you most learn about yourself, your family, your sister, that you can kind of hold on for your next projects?
There's how I feel as a creative person and how I feel different as a woman. And they're kind of connected, because in both instances, as a creative person and as just a human being, I feel so much stronger. I feel like, wow, if I could manage that and be able to hold my emotions, the emotion of my staff or my crew, if I could see what a scene needed and push aside what happened in real life, because that doesn't really work for the moment that's happening on screen. If I can pivot like that, boy, my brain is more elastic than I thought. And I feel a lot stronger. And I think going forward, there will be a sense of, there's a lot I think I can handle under pressure. There were a lot of times where, you're on set making 50 decisions an hour, with the added thing that we started with, which is how personal it is, and trying to toggle between what really happened versus what needs to happen today on set for this scene for a TV show. I just feel a lot stronger. And I will always take away what's been affirmed for me about my life, that I take from my sister and I take from my late brother-in-law.
Yeah.
And he really was the one who taught so many of us to really be alive until you're not anymore. Be alive until the very last moment that you're not anymore. He just had this sense of like, I'm going to get everything out of life. He wanted every meal to be beautiful. He wanted every story to be funny, every joke to be great. He played guitar. He wanted great music. He just wanted a big, full life. And he made that for himself. And he set an example for, I think, the rest of us, that I hope that people who watch the show take away, that being alive is a kind of wondrous thing, and don't lose a second of it. Don't lose a second of it.
Oh, I could not have said it better myself. Attica, thank you for your time. Congratulations
Thank
on a
you.
beautiful show, and good luck.
Thank you. Thank you so much.